Welcome to ASSA ABLOY's Security Perspectives podcast. In today's complex world, it takes a village to ensure the safety, security, and health of a facility. In each episode, we'll speak with industry experts about their point of view on the latest trends, technologies, and topics impacting the security industry. If you want to broaden your perspective on physical security, this podcast will give you the insight you're looking for. All right, welcome to Season 3, Episode 3 of our Security Perspectives podcast, brought to you by ASSA ABLOY. Really excited about our topic today regarding mobile credentials. It's been a very hot trend over the course of the last 6 years within the higher education space specifically. And we have a couple of guests joining us for today's episode focused on mobile credential deployment and taking a look back at the journey that Clemson University has gone through as being one of the first, or actually the first, to deploy mobile credentials. And so we're going to get some insights from a couple of our resident experts. Also joining Megan from Clemson is Tim from HID. So with that, I will have Megan and Tim introduce themselves and we'll get started. Megan.
For sure, thank you. My name is Megan Hembry. I'm from Clemson University, obviously. Operate out of the Tiger One Credential Office. Currently, I'm in the acting director position. That's a very recent change for me. Our previous director has retired, but previously I was a business information systems business analyst for our access control, video management system, Genetec, and our credentialing transaction system, Seaboard.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
How long have you been with Clemson?
Since April 2017, so close.
Right, the early adoption.
Yeah.
Right at the beginning.
Yeah, rocked it like a hurricane. Here I come, and everything started shaking around, so yeah.
That's great. Tim?
Yeah, hey everybody. Tim Nyblum, Director of End User Business Development at HID for the higher education vertical.
Great. How long have you been with HID?
Almost 5 years now. I've been in the industry, though, for the last 17 years, always focused strictly on the higher education vertical. So I've kind of seen a lot of the changes over the years, and all this excitement around mobile is definitely fun to be a part of.
Yeah, that's great. We're excited to have both of you joining us today. So Megan, throw the first question out to you. Is give us a little bit of background on Clemson, a number of students, and how the initial conversation about mobile credentials started.
Sure. Yeah. So we are a campus of about 30,000 students, including undergraduate and graduate. We have about 5,000 employees. We were, as far as our mobile journey, we were in a really good position out of the gate to take on mobile with our reader technology, the scale of our access control, and our implementation plan. We were just in a really good place with our partners and the integrations through HID. And so we began our mobile journey around we were approached around 2018, late 2018, and we went live in fall of 2019, and starting with the Apple Wallet integration.
So how did you get to the point, you mentioned you were in a good position to take advantage of that. Was that by chance, or was that through strategic thinking or a vision from leadership? Or
Sure. I have to give kudos to our previous leadership, Steve Robbins. He, I think, had that forward vision to be prepared, even though you don't necessarily know what is behind the curtain of the future, being prepared, having the newest tech that I know it has flexibility. Can I articulate that? Not today, but I know it will be valuable. And he really positioned us very well to have reader technology that would support future implementations that way. So a lot of times, one of the boundaries to accessing mobile is what condition your access control infrastructure is in. And for us, we were in a really good place with that. And that's that foresight of leadership and just being ready to be forward thinking with innovative technology, sometimes before you even know how to implement it. So.
Yeah, we've heard a lot this week at the Integrated Access Management and Security Summit about mobile credentials, and like to get the perspective from Tim with HID and his world of credentials, and how does the world of plastic credentials and mobile credentials coexist?
Yeah, it's a good question. Everybody says cards are going away. It's going to be mobile only, but in reality, people that have deployed mobile, even Clemson sitting next to me, here today are still using cards in some type of capacity. So the reality is everybody's at a different stage in their journey. You know, some folks are still using MagStripe, some folks are using Prox, some folks are now using a higher secure technology card, but it's the concept around identifying the infrastructure to be able to support both. And whether your journey to mobile is 6 months, a year, 3 years, you know, establishing that infrastructure now to support both plastic and mobile for when you're ready to take that journey.
You know, what that initial step in that journey, what's the first thing that a campus should do with their partners?
Yeah, the biggest thing that we recommend at HID is we refer to it as a use case assessment, but kind of identifying what's actually on campus. When we think about universities, one of the biggest challenges has been the siloed nature or the siloed structure of departments on campus. So there's so much potentially legacy technology out there. Folks who go to their own conferences, they hang their own hardware, they buy their own software solutions. There's so much different services and products that around these universities. So really identifying what's out there on campus becomes extremely important. And another step to add to that is actually bringing people together. We refer to them as stakeholders, but bringing folks together to truly understand how this mobile credential could potentially change not only their department, but the campus as a whole, making sure they understand the technology. It's really about education at the end of the day. How can we make the campus modern? How do we transform it? How do we make it better? Focusing on the students and the user experience at the end of the day.
Now, Megan, thanks, Tim. Megan, you mentioned a vision from your predecessor. Mm-hmm. Was that vision in a siloed in a box in a vacuum, or was there student support? Was there administrative support, leadership support to fulfill that initiative that Steve had?
For sure. So we definitely had extended support, unexpected extended support, really. So, and that's one other thing I would advocate. Tim made a really good point, and if I could build off of that, it's even outside of use cases, just partners who recognize the benefit of a use case that may not even exist. So for us, one of our biggest advocates was a steward of technology progression in our IT department. And you know, he was in a position to convince people that this is valuable. So he was... At the time, we rolled out with Apple initially, right? So he was a big proponent of Apple devices, their integration with the university technology, the student experience. And at this time, we were in student affairs, and so it was all about the student experience. What's the edge we can provide that will, you know, put us just, even if it's subconsciously, when they're going around on a tour, what's that little thing that stands out if, you know, they haven't made up their mind, you know, maybe mom and dad didn't go to Clemson, there's no, you know, integral blood here. What stands out, those little pieces that make life easy? And student experience drove that almost entirely. But we had buy-in from our IT department, from this his name was Sam, and he was very foundational to convincing leadership, we need to do this. This is actually bigger than the card office. This is impactful in so many ways that, you know, every use case on campus and more. This is just something that is going to protect the students. They don't carry around their cards, but they carry around their phones. We really gained a lot of traction from his leadership too. But the student experience, you can't not talk about mobile without talking about that. And we visited student government. We had beta tests, even with our earliest implementations of BLE solutions, and the students were blown away. They wanted something on their phone. They don't want to carry around anything but their phone. This is their second brain, you know. And so that was a big driving force in convincing leadership who may not understand the full breadth of the security factor. Just the experience alone can make it worth it.
Yeah, that's great. Now, Tim, question for you. The mobile's, I mentioned it earlier, mobile's been around for quite some time. For maybe the novice person listening today, could you explain maybe what the differences are between NFC, BLE at a high level? And the second part of that question is really what's driven the acceleration in the market from mobile being around for quite some time to now, probably a couple hundred or more universities that have adopted the technology.
Yeah, the terminology you hear in the industry is BLE and NFC. BLE means Bluetooth Low Energy, and NFC is near field communication. So when HID first started doing mobile credentials back in 2014, Apple wasn't in the picture. There was no access to the NFC chip on iPhone. So at the time, BLE was the mobile type solution. Fast forward 4 or 5 years later, Apple comes into the mix with the Student ID and Apple Wallet program. Great partnership there. Where now we have the ability to kind of transition to potentially use NFC within the iPhones under this platform. Under HID's umbrella, we have options to provide mobile credentials both directions if a school chooses to go one way or the other. And I think the acceleration is happening just in general across the board, and we refer to it as like a digital transformation that's happening in the physical access control industry. This is happening everywhere in everybody's daily life, but actually, if you pivot to the physical access control industry, everybody's looking at upgrades, access control upgrades, cloud-based type of solutions. User experience, again, to what Megan was saying, is how do we cater to these students? And when you think about what they do every day on a campus, how they interact every day with their everyday life, what are they using? The phone. If you circle back a couple of years, the number of campuses that have deployed was, a handful. And fast forward to now, we're talking over 100 campuses that have deployed mobile credentials at a high scale. And the pipeline, the excitement, everything is growing, and it's just going to continue to snowball. I think the user experience is probably at the core. Everybody focuses on security and user convenience, and there's always a balance there on what to do. But if they're catering to the students, everything else they're doing on campus is they're catering to them. And what better way to do that by using a mobile credential?
Oh, that's great. And I got a couple follow-up questions for both of you here. When you look at mobile credential, I think there might be some confusion in the marketplace, and maybe we can clear that up today, as you hear the term Apple credentials. Would you explain, Tim, that process of when someone says Apple Wallet credentials, what does that mean? How does that process work?
Yeah, at its core, think about it, kind of separate it. You put a mobile credential. So a mobile credential can actually sit on a phone in an app, or it could be pushed to the wallet in your example, Jeremy, with Student ID and Apple Wallet, where at its core, it's a credential. HID is issuing that credential, so to speak, in this example. But again, depending on how it's being deployed, it could actually sit in an app, which we refer to app-based mobile access, or it could sit in the wallet where it's using NFC, and that is the big driver. NFC is very familiar to folks. It emulates a card, very secure for anyone using, Apple devices and iPhones. People are very familiar with the wallet.
So
right?
Apple doesn't have its own credential?
No.
Okay, we wanted to clear that up because there's maybe some confusion in there. You hear that term Apple Wallet credentials, and so thanks for clearing that up. Second part of the question for Megan is, how do you get issued a mobile credential? What are the partners involved? Who are the partners involved in that process?
Yeah, so for us, our integration partners, as far as vendors, are CBORD, HID. That's our big partners with the entire provisioning process. So what it looks like for us, we've had some time to massage the process and marinate with the process and kind of make it our own flavor. But at a bare bones level, a provisioning process essentially looks like you have a vendor application that the student obtains, and there's that very familiar Add to Apple Wallet button. To your point, it's not Apple's credential, but it sits in that wallet, which is a huge value to students because it's a ecosystem they're familiar with, right? And so you hit that button and that just goes right to your wallet. What we did is we were able to make our entire mobile provisioning experience really hands-off, so that our operations, a student isn't having to wait on us to take action to get their credential, which was a paradigm shift of sorts from the physical card aspect that we followed previously for years. Today, a student comes in for orientation, right, or move in. They submit their photo online. We have software that's automatically reviewing that photo. They're not waiting on us for that. They get a notification when it's been approved, which is typically right away. And then they're given the keys to the castle to get that ID. So they have the full instructions. Here's your app. Click this button. Boom. They show up to campus with that mobile ID provision. They're not having to wait in huge lines of 2,000 students at a time, right? With mom and dad getting antsy. So it's a phenomenal experience. Where we were prior to mobile in the card office, sometimes I forget orientation is even happening at our campus, because it's just so hands-off, and that's fantastic because we have so many other things we can be thinking about, interesting things that aren't just the day in, day out. I like the way you said it earlier, push a button every day, all day, and just sit there, like waiting on the same thing to happen. So it's been really fun for us.
Yeah, and a couple points I'd like to further from that comments is if I'm a university that's listening and I want to start the process towards mobile, I've heard a couple things, and first one being I need to get my reader infrastructure, make sure it's upgraded to be able to read the mobile credentials. So that's a step one. Step two is not everybody can issue a mobile credential. So would you guys elaborate on the partners out there that can issue a mobile credential? Tim?
Yeah, I mean, again, depending on which way we go with mobile credentials. So when we think from HID's standpoint, if we went what we refer to as app-based, which sometimes gets kind of put in the bucket of BLE version. So app-based mobile deployments is we have a lot of OEM integrations now. So they've done the APIs directly into our Arrigo Cloud to actually issue a mobile credential from the access control system. We actually have another avenue, what we refer to as technology integration partners, that are actually taking the same APIs, building solutions with apps that actually deliver solutions to their end users. So being able to put a mobile credential in an app in that sense. And then going forward with the Student ID and Apple Wallet program, right? Leveraging our partnership with Apple to deliver credentials to the wallet, working with one of the one-card providers or you hear transaction management companies in the higher education industry. So leveraging those partners. Megan mentioned they use CBORD. There's the Core 5 in North America, CBORD, Atrium, TouchNet, Transact, and ITC Systems. So anyone that has done Apple Wallet today is using one of those partners as well. So it's kind of bringing everybody together to kind of talk through what's needed, bring the right folks to the table, and develop that project to move it forward.
That's great. Thanks, Tim. Megan, you've been on this journey now for quite some time. What's the one takeaway or best thing that mobile has done for your campus?
I would say the best takeaway, other than selfishly the ease of use of getting around campus when we watch, would be the freedom to utilize our workforce more strategically. So we have a shop of around 10 people, and prior to our mobile journey, a lot of our workload was making sure we had enough printer infrastructure at scale to deploy for all of these physical cards we needed to deploy, right? Constantly managing credential type situations where that was the hub of our shop. You walked in and where a customer comes in, we're holding their hand, we're kind of helping them day in and day out. I give credit to mobile for really shifting our perspective entirely. We actually moved off of campus, so we were able to take our operations more remote due to mobile ID. And with that deployment, we really our customer service interfacing has dropped tremendously with self-service tools, mobile ID, all of these things where, Gen Z, I think I heard it was called Gen Alpha.
That's the next
Is
one,
that,
Gen Alpha, yeah.
I don't know how that comes after Z, but I guess you just start over.
Start over again.
Yeah, you start at the end and then start over. So they don't want to pick up the phone and call somebody to be able to do something. They want to do this themselves on their phones. I don't even think they want to send an email. They want to text, or they want to do it themselves. And so we want to empower them to be able to do things the way they prefer, and it also benefits us. So we have seen a shift where we can focus more on our access control systems, our video systems, all of these other foundational pieces of our office that we really just skirted the surface of before because we were bogged down in the day-to-day physical card production. It has completely changed our operations. You could walk into our office and not really understand that we also produce credentials. But we are day in and day out behind the scenes, and we do very little to have to support that program.
Yeah, and we heard a lot this week at the Integrated Access Management and Security Summit from universities that have not adopted mobile yet. Mm-hmm. And it seems like there's a lot of struggle with the administrative side of it, looking for an ROI. We can increase student enrollment. I don't know if does that data exist, because it sounds like you guys just had a vision to say this is what we needed to do, mm-hmm. because it was the right thing to do, and we had student experience on our mind. Now you're realizing all of those benefits 5, 6, 7 years later. Mm-hmm. So does that data exist? Have you guys been able to track?
I think it likely does exist. Tracking it, with any data set, you have to target explicitly what you're looking for. I can tell you from our experience, we have saved funding in unique ways. Like I said, we're not on campus anymore. Campus real estate is for typically an auxiliary service, which is a lot of credential offices. We're not anymore, but you spend a lot of money on your office space, and we've saved. That was like $20,000 a year right there. We had 96% mobile ID usage from our students. We began to take on use cases that we didn't support before. So take our bike share program, right? They have their own card. They were doing their own thing. They were spending money, and we've had a handful of these cases. They're spending money on systems that we already have that is now easy to obtain. And so we wrap those programs into mobile ID. And so even if we're not seeing return on investment uniquely in our department, it spans campus use. And I think, at least for Clemson, and I imagine for other universities, that scope at the executive leadership level is really important. If you can articulate, maybe you can't, okay, this benefits us in these ways. How does it benefit our partners? I think when you're thinking bigger like that and you're looking at your scope a little wider, the return on investment really spans your campus, your university. Think about your athletics. Think about the programs they're using to deploy tickets or something. There's a lot of opportunities to save money for other folks, and in turn, that really has a return on investment for your entire facility. And that doesn't even touch, the driving factor of student experience. That could just tick that little marker over to why I like this campus a little bit more. I can't even tell why, but it just seems easy and fun to get in here, I definitely think there's value in it, that even if you don't look at it within your office, within the campus itself.
Yeah, the ROI it comes up quite a bit, and sometimes can be challenging to answer. But when you look at it from like a credential management standpoint, everybody focuses on the cost of a credential. Let's just say it's $4 or $5, right? That is not the true cost of producing a plastic ID. Some folks say it's $15, $20, $25 when you talk about the overhead, the labor, the materials you have to be used, all the work, the manual processes, the integrations that are not there, that when you move to mobile, it actually brings all this together, simplifies it. What that ROI is, it's hard to say sometimes, but listening to what some of the stuff Megan's been sharing, it just kind of wraps everything together, allows the office to actually take on bigger projects. It empowers their staff, takes on larger opportunities. and it really just transforms the campus in general.
Yeah, no, that's really great feedback from both of you. And I think because Clemson has been down this journey now for the last 6 years, you guys can provide a lot of valuable insight into that ROI and what it's done that you may not have been even thinking about previously. So, well, thank you both for joining us today. I think the audience would get a lot out of this conversation. So appreciate you taking a look back at Clemson's mobile credential deployment along with their partner HID. So Megan, Tim, thanks for joining the Security Perspectives podcast.
Thanks,
Thank
Jeremy.
you. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Megan.
Yep. Thank you, guys.